This video is over section 5.5 just about regression lines using our TI84. I have a plus CE editions, but it's pretty much the same on all calculators, TI84. So it says the data given represent the class averages for individual students based on the number of absences from each class. So on the top row, we have number of absences, which they say is X, and on the bottom row, we have average in class, which they say is Y. And so it's kind of like these are individual points on our graph. And I'm going to talk you through these screenshots that kind of show you what your screen should look like as you're putting these into the calculator. So the first thing that part A says find the equation of the least squares regression line. There's no you're not going to do any math, but you're going to use your calculator to do this. So there's a lot of steps, but hopefully I'll explain it well. And if not, let me know what questions you still have. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to input data into L1 and L2, and you find that by going to stat. So I'm going to put a square around stat because it's a button. And then after you hit the stat button, you hit enter. So stat enter. Enter is like the edit menu. Okay. When you do stat enter, it's going to bring up this screen that I have here. Okay. So when you're looking at this screen, I am inputting all of the data. And up here, I'm putting the first row into L1, the second row into L2. It does matter the order here. These need to be matched up. So if you can see, I'll use a highlighter. You can see I have 388, and on my calculator, 388 line up together. Okay. Awesome. So the first thing you're going to do is input your data into L1 and L2. Pause the video if it's taking you longer than what I'm talking. To input the data, you type the number and then hit enter. It should work, and then use the right arrow to go to L2. All right, after you have that, you need to turn on your scatter plot. So, oops, sorry. So number 2, you need to turn on your scatter plot. And how you do that is you're going to hit second. So that second is the blue button. And then you're going to hit Y equals button. Okay, and if you look above Y equals, it says stat plot in blue. Okay, so that's why we hit this blue button first. So second Y equals will bring up this screen that I have on the right. Make sure that you have it turned on. And then for type, you want to scatter plot. And then make sure you have L1 and L2 here. So your screen should look exactly like what I have on the right. Next, we want to graph it. Before we graph, though, we want to adjust our window. We want to make sure that all the dots, you can see all the dots in our screen. So I accidentally have a black box over X-Men, but that should be 0. Let me make that black so you can see it. That should be 0. So when we look up at, well, I'll put our X values and our Y values. So when we go back and look at the data we were given, the smallest X value that we have is 1, and the largest that we have is 13. So we want our X values to go from 1 to 13, but I like to have a little room on each side. So for my X values, I went from 0 to 15. It gave me a little room on each side. So again, sorry about this black box, but that went from 0 to 15. Okay, and then for my Y values, if I scroll up here and look at the Y values, the smallest Y value that I have was 56, and the largest that I had was 97. I decided to go 0 to 100 just because I know this is a grade in a class. So I know the highest grade you could get is 100, and that gives me a little room for that 99. I could start my graph for y around 50. I decided to keep it 0, but you can definitely do 50. So for my y values, I went from 0 to 100. Actually, if you notice here, I did 110 to give me some room. So let me fix that here. But you can really do whatever. You just want to make sure that whatever your, I'll highlight in pink here. So 0 to 15 was here, and then 0 to 110 for y was here. I did want to make a note this if x scale is what x is counting by, and then y scale is the same thing, what y is counting by. I put counting by in parentheses because it's not super mathematical. But I did change the y scale to 10 just because 0 to 110 is quite a big spread, and it helps the calculator go a little faster if you spread it out, but not a big deal for that. Okay, great. The next thing that we're going to do is graph. Are we on step 4? Yes. So step 4 is graph. So all you're going to do is hit the graph button. That's in the top right corner. So we're just hitting the graph button. And your graph should look like the picture here if you did the same scales as me. If you did different scales than me, your graph might look a little bit different. The next thing we need to do is find the linear regression line that best fits the data. And when we do that, you're going to go to, let me see, you're going to hit the stat button. And it's going to pull up a menu. And notice here I have the calc highlighted. So you need to use the right arrow. So that's a right arrow. So you're going to hit stat and then the right arrow button. And that'll take you to the calc menu. And then you're going to select number 4. Okay. When you do that, so these are both step 5. So both of these are getting us the line that we want. When you hit enter or when you select number 4, it's going to bring up this menu from the second picture here. Make sure that X list says L1 in it and Y list says L2 in it. That should be the default, but if you're not getting that, you're going to have to input that, and that's like a whole separate video. There are L1 and L2 buttons in the calculator, but you have to hit second first. So just if you need help with that, let me know. Okay, and then you'll go down and hit calculate. So I would use my scroll arrows to go down and highlight calculate and then hit enter. All right, after you do that, we need to actually write the equation. So I'm going to put number 6, write out the linear regression line. Okay, and for us, they give you y equals a plus b, and so the a you're going to plug in for a, and the b you're going to plug in for b. I'm going to round to 4 decimal places. I'm not sure. I bet the computer will prompt you on how you should round for yours. But for this one, we're going to do y equals, our a is negative 3.4714 would be 4 decimals. There is an x there. And then our b would be plus 98 point, I'm going to do 4 decimals again. 8429. So that's our answer to part A, which was the find a linear regression line for the data. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. That totally answers part A, but I do want you to see it on the graph. So for 7, I'm going to plug in linear regression line to the y equals menu. So to do that, I'm going to hit that y equals button in the top left corner, and then I'm going to type in the equation above. I didn't round, so I'm taking this and putting it here. I didn't round when I did that, when I typed it in, but you could definitely just put the rounded one in there. All right, and then if we want to see, so step 8, if we want to see this on the graph with the scatter plot, we would graph, or step 8 would be the graph with the scatter plot. And for that, we would just hit the graph button in the top right corner. Okay, and that will show you that this line that we graphed, I'm using orange here, that orange line that I just drew is the equation that we found on step 6 right there. And that is the line that goes through the points that gives you the least regression. So the least, basically the points are as close as they can be to that line. They're not a perfect line, but with our data, that's the closest line that we could get. All right, and then part B, I'm going to scroll back up so we remember the question. Part B says, use the model from part A to approximate the average for a student who misses 6 classes. Okay, so classes up here, if you notice, was X. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our equation and plug in 6 for X. So I'll go down here. So part B, we're going to plug in 6 for X. And I'm going to do all this on my calculator, but I'll just write out what I'm typing in my calculator. So in my calculator, I guess I wouldn't type y equals. I would type in this highlighted pink equation from step 6. I'll have to scroll back and forth a little bit. In my calculator, I type in negative 3.4714, and I'm plugging in 6 instead of the x, and then plus 98.8429. And again, what I'm doing is I'm taking my equation from number 6 and exchanging x for 6. So we're using our line to predict what it would be if there were 6 absences. And when I type that in my calculator, I get 78.0145. So what that means is the predicted average for a student who has 6 absences is approximately 78.0145%. And again, like the computer might prompt you to round differently.